To my black brothers and sisters across this country, I'm sorry. I'm asking for your forgiveness because I see it. I see men like me rolling back the protections for equal employment rights that you fought centuries for. I saw it yesterday as we incarcerated a generation of your children and then profited off of their unfair sentences. I saw it in the history books as men who looked just like me imprisoned and shackled people who looked just like you and then built a nation off of the backs of your ancestors' labor. My seat at the table of privilege gives me the ability to easily ignore the scraps of food that fall on the floor that you have to fight for. Professional cowardice is a learned behavior, and because my rights are handed to me on a silver platter in this country, I can say and do whatever I want, which includes being complicit through silence and inaction. For too long, I've carried your cause in my heart and shook my head disapprovingly as the bad things happened, all the while knowing that I was going to be just fine. I can't do that anymore. And I'm not asking for praise or adoration, I'm asking for direction. Help me understand how to fight for you. Give me the words to say. Give me the places to march. There are plenty of us that need to be emboldened by what you know, that need to have a fire lit in our souls that will cause us to speak up, not for our own justice, but for yours. So please continue to look men like me in the eye and say the things that need to be said, because for every one of us that would oppress you, there are those of us that want to liberate you. And I understand, it may sound disingenuous. You don't know me, I don't know you, but I care. And I'm asking for your forgiveness because my inaction has contributed to your plight. But I'm here now.
To my white brothers and sisters, I'm not politically correct. I tell it like it is. When I hear someone say go back to your country, it's always from a white person directed at a black or brown person. But that makes no sense because our ancestors weren't from here, and we stole this land, and we're still colonizing it. And when I hear black and indigenous and people of color talk about reparations, I hear a white person in the background yelling reverse racism. But that makes no sense because white people have never been and are not being oppressed based on their race. So white people, I have a question. Why are you so afraid of losing your position in society? Why are you so afraid of losing the comfort that white supremacy has given you? Why are you so afraid of actual equality? Learn up.
I need to talk about Clyde, North Carolina with someone because what I just watched was horrifying. This poor black man just going to the dump site to utilize it as a dump site was told by the owner, it's okay, you can stay right here, just wait. Normally people don't park there, but I'm going to open the gates soon. Just don't go in yet. The son of the owner then comes out and starts yelling at him and says, no, you have to wait at the end of the line, just like everybody else. Sends him back to the end of the line of all the people that came after him. So there he sits. Next thing you know, the son and his 5 friends come up with guns on their hips, and they're threatening him, and they're saying, you stole our cell phone. Apparently the owner's son's cell phone was stolen by this black man. And he says, no, I don't have it. And they say, we want to check your truck. He goes, okay, go ahead, check my truck. And they, of course, don't find it in the truck. A few minutes later, they found it on the ground. But finally, this man gets up to the actual dump site, does what he needs to do, and the men on the video that he is filming are running at him with guns, calling him a boy, reminding him that he better get in his truck and get off this property. And then apparently they took 2 bulldozers and flipped over his truck. This poor man was trying to do his job. I can't imagine how scared he is, how scared he was. And I hope all of them lose their jobs over this.
Do you believe systemic racism exists? Black Americans suffered roughly 250 years of race-based intergenerational chattel slavery, where they were beaten, raped, tortured, cannibalized, and enslaved. Very few Black Americans had wealth because of these conditions that were forced upon them. When the 13th Amendment was put in place, which ended race-based intergenerational chattel slavery, it said that indentured servitude and slavery was still acceptable as punishment for crime. Not every state had a prison at the time of the 13th Amendment. But after the 13th Amendment was written into law, every state started investing in prisons. And every state created these laws which were universally known as the Jim Crow laws, which basically made it illegal to be black. So the United States started rounding up black Americans and enslaving them in the prison system, while at the same time destroying their properties and their wealth. It has been roughly 50 years since the end of the most previous Jim Crow era. White Americans had over a 350-year head start while building their wealth and empires off of the backs of black Americans. Ignoring the fact that black Americans make up 38% of the prison population and only make up 13% of the US population, which is an obvious sign of racial discrimination stemming from the Jim Crow era, black Americans never received reparations, so how are we equal? If you are born black in the United States, you are 48% likely to be born into poverty. If you are born white in the United States, you are 7% likely to be born into poverty. That is systemic. Equality does not exist in the United States. The idea that it does was fabricated in order to hide the fact that systemic racism still exists today. Learn up.
You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
What a time to be alive. If there is something to be happy about, it's actually seeing white people come out to really say no to how black people are being treated. From the Jim Crow, whatever, to slavery, to all of that. Honestly, when I see these people talk about it seriously, I'm like, there's hope. And that is exactly what the book of Jeremiah is saying about black Americans. You understand? You see the way it's moving. You all went through it. And what does the Bible say about when you should know that, that his hands is upon you? He said in his words, the Bible said that I will make even your enemies to be at peace with you. And this is what is happening right now, right? Watch these videos. You guys are just very close to victory. Do not give up. Let's watch these videos and I'll be back.
I'm not sure who needs to hear this today, but reverse racism is not real. I know that makes you feel uncomfortable. I get it. It used to make me uncomfortable too. But I am asking you kindly to sit with me for just a minute and let me explain why reverse racism is not actually a thing. This was a tough thing for me to learn many years ago when I started this process of deconstructing all of these things that I realized I had up here in my old noggin and here in my chest. We tend to use racism and prejudice interchangeably. We use both words to basically talk about the same thing, but there's a difference between the two words. Racism and prejudice are not equal. They're not the same thing. You see, anyone can be prejudiced. Prejudice is the harboring of negative feelings or thoughts, often stereotypical and unwarranted and unfair, towards another group. This can be another group racially and ethnically. It could be another group in terms of socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, the way that somebody identifies, even religion, immigration status, on and on and on. Racism is specifically about race, but racism is systemic. You see, racism requires the power of society behind it. Now, when we talk about the United States of America and our history, a history that involves colonization, the fact of the matter is social power has always been on the side of white Europeans or people from a European lineage. You see, because it was white European descent individuals who had the power, they were also the people who created the systems that are still. What systems are we talking about? Honestly, all of them. All forms of government, both federal and local. Institutions such as prisons. Institutions like schools, universities. Also institutions such as places of worship, with Christianity being the dominant religion in the United States. Also when it comes to social hierarchies, real estate, access to land and to homes. financial institutions. All of these were established upon the white Eurocentric framework. Because of this history, it means that all of the institutions within our nation are driven and built within and function because of that specific white Eurocentric paradigm. So what does all this mean? Well, basically, white people are the majority in our country, not only numerically, but also in terms of social power and the amount of social power that we wield. Now, obviously, there's stratification within white people themselves, because those of a lower socioeconomic bracket are not going to have as much power to wield as someone from a higher socioeconomic bracket. Men, historically speaking, have higher power to wield than women, but white people are at the top when it comes to social power because of the way our country was established and all of our systems were created. This means when white people exhibit prejudice, they have systemic and institutional power behind that prejudice. And that creates racist behavior. That creates racist paradigms. That creates systemic racism. You see, because when we wield our prejudices, there's a lot of power behind that. Because we basically have the backing of the society within which we live and function. Whereas when a person of color does have or exhibit any types of prejudices, it doesn't have the same type of institutional power behind it because of the history of our nation. So, fellow white people, I'm asking you, because I know this is not a comfortable conversation, the next time somebody calls you or something that a white person does out for being racist, I ask you to really, rather than immediately resort to argument about why it's not racist and justification for what was done, maybe sit with that for a minute. Sit with it and understand that racist actions are not always purposeful. You don't have to be trying to be racist to be racist. In fact, it's actually quite easy to participate in behaviors that are racist without having any idea that you have. So when a person of color calls us out on that and says, hey, hold up, or maybe even another white person says, you know what, I've learned that this is problematic, rather than immediately wanting to defend ourselves, we need to understand that there's some validity there, right? This is something that perhaps we need to sit with a bit and do some work on. It's really easy to point fingers and cast blame somewhere else and say, yes, but they're racist too. But the thing is, like we've explained, people of color here in the United States, given our social framework, are not racist. They can be prejudiced, but it does not wield the same ramifications as prejudice and therefore racist behavior on our part. I am not an expert on these things by any means, but I am learning a lot. And I wanted to share that because I've been seeing a lot in comment sections lately about reverse racism. And it's kind of a pet peeve of mine because of what I've learned about it. So I'm just asking you, even if you disagree with me, to take into your thought bubble these words, do some pondering on it, and maybe do a little research, learn something. Because I promise you, if you're willing to just try to learn, you're going to be better for it. At least I think so. Anyways, I hope you have a beautiful evening. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
It sucks to be a white American. Now hold on, give me a chance, let me explain. I want you to think of the kind of person who would put on a White Lives Matter sticker on the back of their Ford pickup. Why do they do that? Is it all racism? Well, yeah. But I think it goes a lot deeper than that. White Americans basically have no culture, not in the same way we see other people. And we white people, we know this inherently, and it scares us. We know we have our regional cultures. Our cities, our sports teams, and families all give us our regional culture, but being white basically means nothing, or generally at least nothing positive. White people throughout American history are almost always seen on the side of the oppressors. Not all white people, but most of us. And this sucks to learn. It's even harder to internalize. And it's why white people usually don't accept this, because it makes us feel a deep sense of guilt. I think it's why white people say nonsense like, I can't be racist, I have black friends. Sure, you probably don't see black people as objects, but you're refusing to accept the role our people have had in their oppression. That guilt we feel is our responsibility for the actions of our ancestors. It's why white people refuse to say that black people deserve reparation, because it admits our guilt. But black people deserve reparations. It just makes sense logically. You can sue someone for scratching your car, but black people can't sue the American government for the enslavement of their people. My people are arresting and deporting Mexican families from this country. Think about that. We are telling people that they are not allowed on the land we stole. Let's go a step further. White people stole a sacred land site from the people indigenous to this land, and then carved 4 white people's faces on it, most of which were slave owners. I mean, Mount Rushmore is a place that we look at and we're like, oh, cool, giant faces. But to other people, it's a giant form of oppression, and admitting that and coming to terms with that sucks. We suck, dude. My people really and truly suck. Not all of us contributed to this oppression, but we are all a part of it. And this will mostly sound like virtue signaling. It will mostly sound like, look at how rough we are. But there is a reality to admitting this guilt and being honest with it. Because white people are afraid to do this. And we're afraid to admit it because my people are weak. White people are weak. We have power we have given ourselves. And put down the cultures that are stronger than us because we know that we're weak. If white Americans were oppressed the same way black, native, or Mexican American people are, we would crack like glass. Our culture and identity as white people is so meaningless that we do everything in our power to keep other people down so that we don't break from having someone else on top. I think that's why you see white Americans championing white pride, not just out of ignorance or racism, but it's because they are scared. They're scared to come to terms with their guilt, scared to admit they're wrong, and terrified to acknowledge that we may have all the societal, economic, and political power, but as a people we are weak. But this isn't the way it has to be forever. I have hope that one day my people will finally take responsibility for what we have done. I hope that we'll collectively accept our role in the oppression of our non-white brothers and sisters and finally take action. And it will take the action of us white folks. It's not just non-white people that have to fight for their rights. It's us too fighting for them because our cross to bear is being born white. Being born with the skin color of the oppressors means that we have to fight to be nothing like them. We're not near that right now. America is in a tumultuous stage where it very much does not feel like white people are acknowledging where they went wrong. But I want to have hope, and I refuse to accept that one day justice won't prevail. Collectively, we can all shed the shadow of oppression and share this place together. And that's a message I want to end with. I want to be hopeful that one day oppression will be something taught in history class, something that we don't have to see ourselves in. That's my hope. Anyway, I want to be optimistic in the end. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
I'm genuinely excited that you asked this question because it gives me the opportunity to expound upon this concept a little bit. So I want to start on the front end by acknowledging that the social construct of whiteness here in America is real and that there are inherent benefits to being born white in a country that has its origins rooted in white supremacy. That said, I've been able to disassociate myself from the identity of whiteness in that I do not derive any of my personal identity from the fact that my skin lacks melanin. I want to be explicitly clear when I state that whiteness is not real and that whiteness only exists in the presence of blackness or in the presence of other communities of color. One of the things that I observed growing up in an all-white community is that there is no meaningful solidarity around whiteness. When I look back across my childhood and I examine the times that my family was going through hardship and I identify the people who were in a position to help us but ultimately chose not to, or in some circumstances deliberately went out of their way to make our lives more difficult, what I find is that it's exclusively old white people. What I found in these instances is that even though they were white and we were white, that whiteness did not provide any sense of connection to the point where they felt obligated to help us. And that's what you'll find anytime that everybody in the room is white, that whiteness does not provide a strong enough connection to overrule any of their individual self-interests. Clearly, the identity of whiteness has some appeal, some allure. If you don't believe me, go ask Enrique Tarrio. In fact, the only time that you'll see that whiteness has a meaningful binding effect is when people gather together for the express purpose of celebrating said whiteness. Now, these are all observations that I've taken from my personal life experience, but we can also pull from historical evidence examples that show that whiteness is a contrivance. As Theodore Allen points out in his book, The Invention of the White Race, whenever the first Africans showed up at Jamestown in 1619, there were no white people whenever they showed up. In fact, the word white wouldn't show up in colonial records for another 60 years. At that time in history, there were English, Irish, French, German, Austrian, Russian, Prussian. They were a nationality. They never referred to themselves as white. It wasn't until 1680 that the concept of whiteness became prevalent in the cultural lexicon, and that's a direct result of the colony of Virginia legislating whiteness into existence in response to Bacon's Rebellion, which was a labor uprising comprised of an alliance of European indentured servants and African indentured servants and slaves. The ruling class of Virginia was incredibly concerned about this alliance, and it culminated in the Slave Codes of 1705, which created a social separation between Europeans and Africans. It ensured that Europeans could never be subjected to lifetime servitude, and it ensured that African slaves could never be free. The social separation was deliberately created by the aristocracy to ensure that they wouldn't have to contend with future labor uprisings, and it's existed in some form or fashion ever since. So once you've examined all of this, and you've identified that whiteness isn't real and that it's always existed as a barrier to class solidarity, it becomes incredibly easy to separate yourself from the identity of whiteness. I appreciate y'all taking the time. Y'all have a good one.
So I just want to quickly talk about this division between black people and white people and how ridiculous it is. So this is my thoughts on it. Let me know your thoughts if you agree or disagree. So I believe that there's no such thing as black or white. It's just a label that got put on us 100 years ago, whatever, to try and separate us, try and weaken us as a species. And it's working, because we all argue with each other about pointless crap. So I don't believe that I'm white. I don't believe that the whitest of white people is white. And I don't believe that the darkest skinned black person is black. We're all brown, all of us. We're just a different shade of it. We all come from Africa, so I don't know why we argue about that. It's a scientific fact. I'm a child of Africa at some point if you go far enough back. If you stick me in the sun, I'll go brown, because that's what's meant to happen. It's your skin's natural defense to the sun. And the only reason that I'm white is because, I don't know, 10,000, 40,000, whatever years ago, my ancestors decided they were going to leave Africa and head north. And north means less sun. So I don't need the protection in my skin as much. Same with my nostrils. My nose changed shape because I had to breathe in colder air. I just adapted. Well, I didn't, but my ancestors just adapted to the environment. That's the only difference in us. We're all the same. We're all the bloody same. So why we argue about this and that and black and white, it's just ridiculous. We're all one species. And the sooner we realise that, the better it'll be. There's no difference between an Englishman like me and an African, except we've adapted to his environments. That's it. I don't get the need to argue about irrelevant shit like skin colour. It's just ridiculous. We're all people. We're all the human race. We need to get on, because there's far more fucking important things going on in the world that we as a species need to unite on than fucking skin colour. That's that.
I know I don't understand your experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I have never had to live it.
Come on now.
I can sympathize, and I can recognize when things are wrong. For instance, if a black man or woman should never be afraid for their life, for getting pulled over for speeding.
Come on now. Come on.
But I have never lived in that fear.
Come on now. Come on.
No black man or woman should ever be reluctant to walk outside for fear of racial profiling.
Tell it.
But I have never been racially profiled.
That's right. Come on now.
No black man or woman should ever expect to go to jail in their lifetime because of the color of their skin.
Come on now.
But I have never lived in that expectancy.
That's good.
And this is why I don't believe in the phrase, I don't see color.
That's right.
One, to say you don't see color is a lie. We're different. We can all see that. But two, and way more importantly, to deny the differences in our skin is to deny the differences in our privilege.
Come on. Yeah.
I'm going to say that again because I think it's worth repeating. To deny the differences in our skin is to deny the differences in our privilege.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next point. To deny the differences in our color is to promote ignorance. Ignorance is the reason that systemic racism and oppression is allowed to exist in this country.
That's good.
So why am I here? Why am I up here speaking?
Come on now, tell them, sister.
I'm going to talk on about 3 things. One of those is change, the other is ignorance, and one is discomfort. I'll get there.
Go ahead. Take your time.
Broadly speaking, why am I here? Because I want change. But let me speak on that for a second. Because I think a lot of people want change. I think a lot of people say they want change, but let me clarify. I think a lot of white people think they want change. But here's the thing about that. In order for there to be a true and genuine change, for you, for the black community, for people of color, there has to be an equal and requited amount of change for white privilege.
Yes, right.
And that is something that white people don't want to think about. They don't want to admit that. White people don't want to acknowledge the head start we have in life just for being born this color. You know what? That is willful ignorance.
Put it on front line.
Willful ignorance is what allows oppression to continue in this country.
Together we stand. That's it.
So I'm going to talk on ignorance for a second. I think one of the biggest things that allows ignorance to continue is our education system.
There it is, baby.
Ma'am, our education system.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I mean by that is our education is a white man's education.
It is.
It is a white man's history.
Yes, ma'am. Tell it.
Why does that matter? Again, like I said, I can recognize when something is wrong. And that is wrong. Why? Because when you tell that history, the history that excludes black history and black culture and the black experience, you allow white people to think that nothing is wrong. And when that happens, you allow white people to think, well, it was bad back then, but it's not bad now. Hell no! It's bad now. In fact, some might say it's worse because this is systemic oppression. This is institutional oppression. This is oppression that is not overt, but it is just as powerful, and we are able to hide it. And I have more to say. If you want to hear all of it, please come out Saturday.
We'll be there.
Thank you. We appreciate it. But just know the reason I'm here is because I stand by you. I support you. I love each and every one of you out here. We are brothers and sisters to the day we die. And this is not my time to have my voice heard, but I will use my voice for you. I promise.
Thank you.
Didn't really realize how racist some people are until I'm in an all-white space and people don't realize that I'm mixed.
I have so many stories of growing up being biracial and white people just saying anything they wanted to say in front of me.
I hear racist stuff all the time. It's time to expose. One time I was with this group of white people and the girls were talking about this girl who had jungle fever. And this white girl goes, "Isn't it a shame to see our race mixing with another? What's going to happen to our white purity?"
About the time that a hate group was started at my high school called the NHRA. I'll let you guys try and guess what that stood for. And my friends were curious as to why I was completely pissed off because I'm not full black.
I am Mexican, full-blooded. And one time I was dating this guy and his grandpa just moved to a different house. And he said, "Yeah, you grew up over here." And I'm like, "Oh, did you?" He's like, "Yeah, it's really different now." I'm like, "How so?" He's like, "Well, a lot of Mexicans and blacks live over here now."
I grew up in an extremely racist part of Louisiana. For instance, when I was in beauty school, going to one of my friend's house, and her mom asking me, like, "Does it gross you out to touch N-word's hair?"
I was at a pool party one time and this guy asked me, "What are you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm mixed." And he asked me with what? And I was like, "Black and white." And he was like, "So you're a half N-word." And then he like turned to his wife and his whole family and was like, "Guys, guess what? Cole's a half N-word." And like everybody's laughing.
There was another time where I was at a party and the only other black person there left early. Right after he left, one of the white dudes there proceeded to say the N-word. Not even in a song or anything, just said it out loud. When I confronted him about it, he said, "What? He's not here anymore." Little did he know that I'm a double agent.
Right now, I look mixed as because my hair is done, but normally pretty white passing. If you worked in film before, you know like 11 hours is a normal day. A white-passing Hispanic person had overheard one of the main actresses' distress cries to the director. Let's call the actress Biffany Babish. Miss Babish says, "My feet hurt, it's time to wrap." One more take. Miss Babish says, "Okay, well then you go and pay for my medical bills." And this white Hispanic had the audacity to say, "Ooh, I'm so glad we have Miss Babish to go ghetto on them." I said, "Ghetto?" She said, "Yeah, black." Or talking about going to clean my car and another friend's mom saying, "Oh, you gotta go get the N-words to clean it." N-words are so good at cleaning cars. They know how to clean cars so good. N-words are so good at cleaning. He's like, "Do you don't want to live in a neighborhood that has a lot of Mexicans and blacks?" And I said, "You don't? Because why would you want to live in a neighborhood that has really good food and really awesome people?" My boyfriend at the time didn't say anything. Thanks, Kyle.
There's another time where we were talking about an opposing basketball team. We were talking about why the team was so good, and somebody goes, "They're only good because they let all the charity cases on the team." There were no white people on this team. I'm sure I'm not the only white passing person with these kinds of stories. So.
Are you happy seeing those videos? Of course, I am very happy as well. I'm very happy seeing that, oh, these people who want to oppress us are now, or oppressors and our slave masters are now beginning to own up to the shit they did in the days. Their children are now beginning to say, no, we don't go to prison as much as these people go to prison. We are not being policed around. Police brutality is not for us, right? Why are these people being treated different from the way we are treated? This is not fair. Do you know what is happening? It's God. The fact that a lot of them are beginning to say, we are going extinct and these people are more than us. Very soon, we are going to be below them as well. Is for you to know what the prophet Jeremiah said was not a lie. This is the fulfillment of prophecy. You all are living in the prophetic. You all are chosen people, black people. You are chosen people. A lot of them are beginning to say, do you know that we all came from the black? You don't come from the black. I don't know them. Where's your melanin? It's high time we begin to ask them, where is your melanin? If you say you are from black, why are you white? This is what God is doing. And people are seeing it, to be honest. People are seeing it. People are beginning to know there's something about black Americans. Yeah, you guys have seen everything crazy in that country. And these videos, I think they're really exaggerated. Let me see, how do you feel about it in the comments? Do you think it's just content or do you feel it's real? Because I am seeing these things and I'm happy. I want you to tell me, do you think for real these people really mean what they're saying? Let me see that in the comments. Do not forget it's Global Gist with BJ, your friend and your sister blessing, right? Do not forget to always support me, support everything I do on this platform. You're going to see my details down below the description of these videos. Do all you can to go support me. I have a lot of things I am doing right now, and I can't wait to see you actually support that. Thank you so much. One love. Continue to subscribe, like, and share this video. Bye.